Welcome, Grizzly Nation, to 2017 football finale. I'm Al Potvin, voice of the Grizzlies, and joined as always, Scott Gross. Scott, what a season.
Yeah, I have to say, Alan, this was a very surprising season, from my perspective. When we first started this season, I went to the Jamboree at Gill Stadium, and if I was a betting man, I would have given Goffstown a 5-4 record, and they really surprised me this year.
Surprising us all with an 8-1 record and 1-1 over in the playoffs. I mean, when you start to look at the beginning of the season, they started off with great momentum right away from game one. They won, beat Concord.
Yeah, I tell you, I think, what I was so surprised, Charlie Keith, let's talk about him first off. I mean, first, he hadn't played quarterback since, I think, freshman year. He came in, really had a great season.
He was a wide receiver
last year. And I think he just picked things up like really quick, and running that read option, that takes a lot in terms of reading the defense, knowing when to hand it off, knowing when to pass it. And I was just so impressed right from the get-go with Charlie Keith.
I guess from reading a couple of the articles and talking to the coach, one of the reasons he chose Charlie was that it was his football intelligence. It's something, or it's instinct, or it's anticipation. It's things that you can't really coach. You just hope that your athlete or your player has it. And I think Charlie has it. I mean, we're fortunate enough to see Charlie again next year because he's only a junior. And right from the get-go, he started scoring touchdowns.
And on the other side of the ball, you talk about the defense. And we knew, Alan, from last year with all those returning seniors.
I was a big fan of the linebacking core. We can start there.
Yeah, let's do that.
I mean, you got Jake Brown coming back, a 3-year starter. You got Justin Pernard, I think a 3.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years, same with Jake. And then Joey Poisson. I mean, Coach Ball said he's probably the best defensive player in the state. Or most underrated player.
Underrated, yeah. And I think those 3 guys really had a great season. They were very fast to the ball. One of the things, just like Winnicott, who was the eventual champion, our 3 linebackers were able to kind of go east-west on the football field. And then when they hit, they hit. They
send a message, absolutely.
They sent a message.
No question about it. It was exciting to see. It's exciting to call the games, and just the impact players that they are. They certainly impacted a lot of people.
Yeah. So going back to that first game with Portsmouth, I mean, that was just a
Concord.
I'm sorry, with Concord. That was just really not a close game. Really from the get-go, defense dominated that game, and right from the beginning, we saw that another big surprise was Jack Stinnett. At running back, so we saw some different wrinkles.
Jack saw a little bit of time last year,
he did.
But obviously with Carter Comina not being able to play this year, Jack stepped up, and I thought he did a super job. Put him in the north-south position, and he keeps his feet moving. He's moving a crowd of players, not just himself.
Yeah, and I tell you, the offensive line also. I was a lot of surprises this year. Offensive line was another big surprise. They were giving up 20, 30, 40 pounds sometimes on the line, and they were able to do very well and push the defenders. So, again, very, very surprised this year. I did not anticipate that Goffstown would make a run for a championship based upon that first, preseason scrimmage against Salem because the defense didn't look all that good. And quite honestly, what intimidated me a little bit more was seeing what I thought was a Bedford team that looked, completely dominant.
Dominating.
Seeing
Absolutely
a Salem
dominating.
team that looked dominant. Seeing a Central team that looked pretty good.
Yep.
So, so the next game
we played, brings us to Dover.
Dover.
And
that was my favorite game.
There's 2 things that stand out for Dover for me. It was the catch, Andrew Duval, one hand, human highlight film, right? The mailman always delivering, and it was the food.
The food.
The food was fantastic. We hope we get to go back to Dover, folks. There's a band concession stand. There's a team concession stand. And kudos to the football team concession stand for their chili and mac and cheese. Had bacon in it. I mean, it was outstanding, world-class food over at Dover.
We obviously go for the football games, we do, but we also like to have a good time and try to, eat some good food, whether it be at the football field itself or a restaurant maybe beforehand or afterwards. But the Dover game was also a game in which, Goffstown right from the get-go dominated, and then
Dover comes back.
Dover came back and made it a kind of a close game. But
ended the game 27-20. So certainly all of a sudden the momentum was there, and then they let it back, and then clearly they ended up for the win. But the big thing that stands out in that game was clearly the catch. I mean, it was a superb catch. You've probably seen it on replays. It's the one-handed over-the-shoulder grab. There's college players, professional players that aren't making catches like that on a regular basis. So that's what stood out for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting as we kind of go through the season, you look at that Dover game, and then next up is Exeter.
Exeter. And that really was the game that really, I think the community, I think myself was like, boy, oh boy, this is going to be a tough one. Dover's good. Exeter is good. We know what to expect. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run it right in our face. But having said that, the strongest point in my mind of the season was the defense. So if we were equipped to play a team, I thought that we would match up very well against that. And clearly, coming out of that win, 28-7, I think sent a shock throughout the state saying, Grizzlies are here. Because I think you're right. A lot of people thought at the beginning of the season, what you said, maybe 5-4, maybe 6-3, but all of a sudden, you put up a score 28-7 and you limit Exeter to almost very little yards and only 7 points. That's a big shock to the state.
Yeah, and I tell you, going into Exeter, that was the first time that I went to Bill Ball Stadium, and it's kind of intimidating, I think, because it's a beautiful facility.
It's a college-level facility.
Exactly, and so for me, the standouts of those games, that was the defensive line really sent a message, and and then when we talk about the defensive line, you got to start off with Adam Moses, who
the Vince Wilfork of the team.
I mean, he stepped in, and you talked about that story where Adam stepped in for what was that kid's name who got hurt?
Melanson. I believe it was when Adam was a sophomore. I believe it was the first
play of the game.
I think it was the first game of the year. Melanson goes down with a knee injury.
Right.
Melanson was a terrific player, 2015. Big shoes to fill.
Leahy right up the middle. Timmy Como first. Ball's loose. There's a fumble. Looks like it's Grizzly ball. Slow to get up. I think that's Christian Melanson. Boy, he's a big body. That's hard to replace on the field.
Throwing off his helmet, he looks to be in some pain. Yeah. He's a big part of this Grizzly defense.
Yeah, this is a big body. Christian Melanson, he's a senior, 5'10", 267. That's a big body to fill.
Number 64 is going to come in. That's Adam Moses. He's a sophomore.
Oh, boy.
He's going to have to step up today. He's been great so far this season. Coach Huff has the utmost confidence that he can get the job done.
All of a sudden, you got this kid that comes out that year, huffs it up my driveway, is out of breath up my driveway, trying to sell me a coupon book, and now this kid is stepping in, and oh boy, what's the run defense going to look like? And from that game on, Adam Moses, kudos to Adam, did a superb job. Big shoes to fill, and now I think there's bigger shoes to fill in his place.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about an impact player. Adam, I think for 3 years as a starter on the varsity, just tremendous impact, and a big guy, but also a very quick guy. I mean, like, he also was able to go east-west, and the way how he was able to make tackles, to get sacks. Again,
we don't have the stats to show it, but just to give you an example of the speed, I don't know how many sacks he would have, but he has to be up there along with Evan Cuddy on sacks in the linebacking core. Again, looking at him, you wouldn't think a guy his size can move the way that he can, but he really got the job done and very effective, and it's quite honestly been exciting to watch Adam play football for the last 3 years.
Yeah, another big standout for me was Picard. I mean, he played nose tackle, so Moses played nose guard or nose tackle for the first 2 years as a starter, and then Coach Huff, he put him as a defensive end, and Picard went in that spot, and then they kind of moved him around as the season went along, but he was another kid who just had a really good season. You know?
And then again, going back to Evan Cuddy, really on that defensive end position, really had some big sacks, especially late in the season, some big sacks for losses on Exeter. On a playoff game, even against Winnicott, had some big sacks. And, talking to Evan himself, he was playing with an injury this year. So, difficult injury to overcome. But still, if you're just watching the game, you'd never know it.
I know.
So Portsmouth brings us to Portsmouth, 49-14.
I just don't remember that game.
Yeah.
It must have been a real barn burner. I mean,
it was home.
Yeah.
I remember that. Was that the 90-degree day?
I don't know. We had
September 23rd. I believe that was the 90-degree day, and it was because it was crazy, crazy hot.
But I'll tell you, let's focus a little bit about the offense, and let's talk about a guy like Carter Schwinnard, who just had just a great season all around, both as a receiver, especially as a cornerback.
He had multiple interceptions throughout the season. Yeah, just terrific. I think what he really brought to the table was his speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if the coach has fastest player of the team or whatnot, but if I'm putting my money down on somebody on the team, I think I'd lay my money down on Carter Chenard as far as the fastest. There's a reason why he wears the gold cleats, because he looks like Flash Gordon when he runs. I mean, he's absolutely a blur when he runs. I mean, very, very fast on his feet.
Yeah, and St. Ange did a great job as the other cornerback for Goffstown. Just between those two and having a safety help with Duval, obviously, probably, arguably one of the best safeties in the state, and they put Heidenreich in there also on defense, and they just did a really good job shutting down a lot of those receivers.
Yep, they really did. Now the big game comes in, and that's Winnicott. The one loss of the season, actually the two losses overall. The only team that the Grizzlies have lost to this season was Winnicott. Congratulations to the Winnicott Warriors, the 2017 undefeated state champs. Quite honestly, if we had to lose to a team, or if a team had to win, I probably wanted the Warriors to win. I mean, they're a good, sound team.
I would agree. I thought that they had just a phenomenal season. Extremely hardworking kids, you can see, and they had a lot of strength, a lot of speed.
Yeah.
They matched up super well against Goffstown, and in that game where we lost 9-6, we kind of dominated most of that game. It was that last drive
It was the second
where
quarter where we put 6 points on the board.
Right.
They blocked the extra point, and then up until the last minute and a quarter of the game is where they kind of controlled it.
Right.
We were able to take the safety, get the ball all the way downfield, and they haven't scored all game. What makes you think that they're going to score with 1:25?
And they did. I mean, they converted on a lot of third and fourth down plays.
The big one was the pass across the middle to McDougal, right? The younger brother who was 6'5" as a junior. And then they march all the way down to what, the 1 or the 4, and with 9 seconds left, they punch it in the end zone. I mean, what are you going to do? I said all along during that game, if you had to pick a team that was a mirror image of Goffstown as far as they can run the ball, they can pass the ball, they play great defense, that's exactly what Goffstown has done. They ran the ball, they threw the ball, and they had great defense. I thought all along that they were a mirror image of the Grizzlies.
You know what I think about in that game, though? I do think about our punter, because he punted quite a bit.
And it was a high snap.
That
it was
poor kid.
Lefebvre.
Eric Lefebvre.
Great, special teams player of the year.
He did. There were so many snaps that were almost over his head in the ground. I kind of felt bad for the kid.
Some that he just got off just in time. I mean, he's probably kept us in anticipation the most out of anybody.
He did, because we were just always wondering, like, are we going to get a good snap? Because we did have some difficulties on special teams, especially late in the season. But Eric just did a great job, and he had some really good punts all season long. So, and he played offensive line as well. And again, not incredibly large kid, super strong, very talented, but he gave up 30, 40 pounds, and he held his own. So good year for Eric as well.
Yep. October 7th, Bedford. 21-7 win. It's always good to beat the Bulldogs, especially when you're at home.
Yeah.
That drew a big crowd, of course, only because Bedford's is close to Goffstown, is some Goffstown residents. Great rivalry between the two. The big highlight there is Bedford lost their quarterback
Connor
the game
Robert.
before against Exeter. While we played Winnicott, they played Exeter. They lost Connor Robert. In comes their backup quarterback. We saw him on his first week. Obviously rusty. That was probably the best time to play them. And it was just really a good defensive showing by the Grizzlies to say, hey, listen, we're top string players. We're going to make you have a hard time with this.
And I think in that particular game, I always thought, and I thought, from watching even the Jamboree and from following this season that, Bedford just had a really good, strong offensive lineman and defensive linemen, but our lines just, push them around all day long. And I think that was the difference maker in that game. And obviously, they were struggling, Bedford, not having, Connor Robert, who was arguably, I would say, the best quarterback in the state up until his injury.
Exactly.
And who knows what might have happened, but a good game for Goffstown, certainly.
Yeah. Next up was Central and Spalding. 2 games which I did miss. Part of my contract negotiations, I get 2 weeks off. And, we get the big contracts, So I was out those 2 games. So tell me a little bit about Central and Spalding. What stuck out?
Well, on the Central game, what struck
me.
out to me was the first play of the game, we kick it off, and Central takes it to the house.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like,
Okay.
uh-oh.
So that was half their points. They ended up with 12. The
Right.
final score was 29-12.
And so right off the bat, Goffstown was not playing all that well.
Yep.
Steve Largy stepped in for you, and thank you, Steve, for helping us out. He did a couple of games with us, and he's going to be coaching the girls' high school varsity basketball team.
Excellent.
This year.
Congratulations.
So I want to wish him the best of luck. And so that game, I was just really, we were in the visitors bleachers with all the fans, which was exciting, but we were flat. We were so flat in that first half. And they were running the ball on us pretty much at will. There was I'm trying to remember the kid's name. Jeremiah was his first name, and that kid was fast.
Yeah.
And we just did not do well. And then the second half, we were able to put up some points, and then our defense kind of shut them down. But that was another one of these kind of scary
way to start the game.
Yeah, trap game.
Next up was Spalding, 35-6 win for the Grizzlies. I believe that was away.
Yeah,
That was in Rochester.
no, we had that one here.
Oh, we did?
That,
All
that
right.
was homecoming, and that was kind of unfortunately, that was not much of a game. I mean, I think we had a pretty good lead by halftime. We played a lot of our second stringers, and they went on what's called the clock. Doesn't stop when you go out
Sure.
of bounds, and
Yep.
running time they call it.
Mercy rule.
Mercy rule. And so that one was kind of all the games, it was probably, I would say, the most uninteresting of all the games. We dominated early on, put up the points, shut them down, and just really a dominant game. You didn't miss much.
Yeah, the
on that
toughest
one.
part of the schedule early on, looking at the beginning of the season, was clearly the front half of the schedule.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
And now
for
you got Memorial and-
Spalding and Memorial didn't do well. They only had a couple of wins between them all season long.
Memorial had 0 wins
Yeah.
in the last 3 years. So going into Memorial, I think we all thought, the community thought, oh, this is going to be a walk in
Halloween,
the park.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, we escape with a 13-7 win.
Yeah.
Andrew Duval was injured.
Right.
So a lot of people asked, hey, did you 13-7? What's going on? How many starters did you not start? And really, it was only Andrew
one.
that I could see. He was injured. And that was a close game. A
Another
little
one where
more close than we thought.
They looked flat, very similar to the Central game. They looked flat, but unlike the Central game where Goffstown put the points and put their foot on the gas in that second half, they really didn't do it against Memorial, and they really squeaked by with a win. And it kind of really demonstrates that it doesn't matter if it's high school football, college, or the pros, on any given game, any given Friday or Saturday or Sunday, a team can win, and that was very scary for Goffstown. They almost lost that one.
Yeah. Then it brings us the first round of the playoffs against Exeter.
Yeah.
Now, we play Exeter at home. One of the things that stuck out, a lot of times we were calling the play, let's go to Putnam, if you remember.
Right, yeah.
I mean, he was wide open on the side, and then we got to Colby a couple of times, who did a super job all season. I think the receivers pretty much were him, Duvall, Heidenreich, and Chouinard were really the main receiving core. But he had a couple of big plays. I thought he was open. It looked like we were calling for it an awful lot. So kudos to Colby. But that was a close game, 22-20. I mean, that came down to the wire.
Yeah, and I think that one, one of the difficulties that we had towards the latter part of the season was in the special teams where we were not getting good protection on our extra point kicks, or we were missing extra point kicks or missing short field goals. And I think that's something that the coaching staffs need to work on next year, is getting a little bit more practice for the field goal unit. And again, not an indictment on the kickers, because I think that Minnick did a nice job, and so did David Gibson.
Yeah.
They did a good job. But when you let people come unblocked through the line, you don't have much of a prayer.
Well, part of the problem, you beat a team like Exeter early in the season, week 3, 28-7. You play them in the first round of the playoffs. You got to expect that they've gotten better through the season, and boy, did they. I mean, I don't think anybody would expect that we'd be trailing 7-0 at the half. And the thing that we've commented on throughout the season was that if there's one thing Coach Huff can do, he can certainly make adjustments. That's exactly what they did. The Grizzlies came out and then scored 3 straight touchdowns.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing in that particular game was that Bill Ball, who's known for just kind of run, maybe they'll put up maybe 10, 12 passes in a given game. I think that the quarterback had 24 attempts. I think he went like 16 for 24. They passed the ball an awful lot. Caught Goffstown a little bit off guard. And unfortunately, those missed extra points, and we missed 2 extra points, and we missed a short field goal. It came down to the wire on that one, if you remember. I mean, it was one of the last plays of the game where they went for a 2-point conversion, and Duval and Poisson stuffed the quarterback, and that was it. But everybody's heart was kind of going a little bit erratic on that one.
A little quick on that one.
Yeah.
Leads us up to the sectional playoffs against Winnicott. We go back and we play Winnicott on a cold, blistery, windy
But
day.
we had a really good breakfast.
A great breakfast.
Yeah.
You got to throw it in over at Fast Eddie's.
Yeah, really
was
good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Homemade bagels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they boil them. Who knew?
I knew that.
You do
I
that?
did,
Well, you're from New York.
Yeah,
You
I
figured
knew
you would know
Yeah.
that, right? I just eat the bagels. I don't
Good
bake them.
pretzels, too. You got to boil them.
Oh, all right.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, you boil that
There's a little
pretzel.
food tip right before Thanksgiving. Get on it.
Salt water.
So Winnicott, 21-6, disappointing. But from the very beginning, first play, Grizzlies take the ball 3 and out. I think they were 3 and out on really a lot of the majority of the possessions in the first half.
Yeah, they were not able to move the ball on the ground, and I think that was the game plan, trying to keep Winnicott off the field, keep their offense off the field, and they just could not do that. And I think the key in that Winnicott game, and there were exceptions to it, but Winnicott off the ball, they were quicker, and they were just more intense on both the offensive and defensive lines, which was a bit different than in that first series where Goffstown kind of held their own. Also give credit, they had Billy Powers, who is their running back, who
He's
they
going
didn't
to
have.
Division I
Right.
track
Super-
scholarship. They didn't have the
super
first
fast.
time. He comes back into this game, and he's an impact player. I don't think
Yeah.
he had many breakout plays, but the fact of knowing that he's in the game takes the attention or focus onto him. Someone else is open, less focus, and that Fuller did a super job for the
Now
Warriors.
football, Alan, is a game of momentum, and in that game, Goffstown was, I'd say, outplayed pretty badly in that first half, but they were down only 7-0, and then
Correct.
they're late in that second quarter. They're driving down for a potential touchdown, and unfortunately, Charlie coughs the ball up.
Who is not commonplace
right,
whatsoever.
10-yard line, and then that stifles that drive. So, had we been able to punch that one in, or at least get some points on the board, that might have changed the momentum a little bit.
You're absolutely right. At the half, for all the momentum and all the moving of the chains by the Warriors, not a lot to show for it with all the momentum that they had in the first half. The Grizzlies' defense did a dandy job keeping them in play.
Yeah, and it's all about, when you execute. There was another play with that Charlie had Carter Schminnard right over the middle. Had he been able to deliver that pass, and he had all season long, it happens. And Carter just takes off. That probably would have been a touchdown or close to it. So again, just little things here and there, but what a super season for the team. I thought they just excelled.
We come back in the third quarter, and he connects on a 76-yard pass to Andrew Duval.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we get some momentum, and then they kind of break away and score at the end. But you're absolutely right. What a terrific season for the Grizzlies. Ending this season, 9-2. Like you said, not many people would have expected the Grizzlies this year to go 9-2.
Yeah. And again, give credit to that offensive line. It was Trevor Post and Mann and Lefebvre. Who am I missing? I think I might be missing
Trevor Post, Mann.
I don't want to miss anybody. But just a great overall season.
Oh, Josh White.
Yeah.
Tough kid.
Yeah. Just a overall
really tough kid.
They really moved those guys off the line most of the year. You don't get these runs by Charlie Keith and by Jack Stinnett without the offensive line
to make that hole and to make that lane.
Busting those holes open, and they just did a really good job. And same thing with pass protection. Charlie had time, and that's where I think I was the most impressed with Charlie Keith was his passing ability. You can see right off the bat that this guy had the legs. He was quick.
And then all of a sudden
fast,
you see that he can make the pass.
And then he can throw the ball too.
So we kept talking about the Dover game. Let's go back real quick and talk about Andrew, the mailman. We know he's going to deliver the ball. But actually the person who delivered him the opportunity was Charlie Keith.
Yeah.
Because that pass, I don't know if we look back on that, but that pass had to be a 20, 30-yard pass right only where Andrew could possibly catch the ball. It was pinpoint accurate by Charlie.
Yeah, and going back to, we can't say enough about Andrew Duval. I mean, in my opinion, if he's not the best player in the state, then I'll be shocked. He's in the top 3.
The best all around. And again, I haven't looked at the
Only
stats.
through observation, because we saw a lot of these teams. We did not see the Salems or the Pinkertons
That's
this
right.
year, and we do know that.
But he
Salem-
wasn't a leader in receiving yards. He wasn't a leader in rushing yards. He wasn't a leader in touchdowns. He wasn't a leader in interceptions. He wasn't a leader in tackles. But he did every one of those to perfection, in my opinion.
I think the most dangerous player in the state, in my opinion. Every time he touched the ball, he's a very, very elusive, extremely difficult to tackle. One of the hardest hitting safeties that we saw. I mean,
He dips, he dives, he ducks, he does everything.
When
he does
he
it all.
hits somebody from that safety position, I mean, it's a shiver.
So this is just a quick little story I think I may have shared with you. Prior to the playoff game against Winnicott, I had an opportunity to meet the brother of the offensive coordinator for Winnicott. We're having lunch. And he says to me, so tell me about this number 9. I heard he's fantastic on defense. It kind of took me aback. I guess we kind of take it for granted that when you talk about Andrew Duvall, you think about the offense and his offensive prowess.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden he's saying, oh no, he goes, everybody's looking at the game film and they're saying he can pack a punch. And there was one particular game that they kept watching, and apparently Andrew came in from the free safety position and just annihilated someone.
He definitely, he definitely, he hit extremely hard. And I think, what I will remember of him is just, a dynamic player, a kid just had phenomenal hands, elusive, very, and then all of a sudden he just had that breakaway speed where just get him in a little bit of open space and off to the races. So he was a human highlight film this past year, and he's just had a stellar career.
It's going to be sad to see all the seniors go. They've definitely given us a lot of entertainment throughout the season. It's been exciting to watch. It's been exciting to play. I'm sure it's exciting as your end. And it's just been now we have to look forward to next year.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, another thing that I want to give a lot of credit to, and I was fortunate enough. I went to about 5 or 6 practices throughout the year, maybe some more, and we got a really special coaching staff here in Goffstown, obviously led by Justin Huff, but it's not just Justin. I mean, he has about 10 guys.
He has a good crew.
He has an unbelievable crew. They're so good with these student athletes. Football does not always get, the kids who are the most polite and
rough around the edges. Some of the kids.
Yeah,
maybe.
some kids are a little rough around the edges,
Sure.
and and I'm telling you that I'm just so impressed
Well,
with the camaraderie,
the sportsmanship.
The sportsmanship.
There was a game in particular, we commented on it throughout the game, that every time somebody was down, whether it be the Grizzlies or the opponent, there was an arm down and helping somebody up off the field every single time. So, a lot to be said for the team, but also just the character that the coaches are building.
And that's all about Justin. It starts at the top, and then I think what he does is he kind of embodies that in his upperclassmen, who then I was on the sideline during one practice, and a couple of freshmen, I think maybe sophomores, they were kind of horsing around, and the juniors and seniors, they weren't having any part of that, and neither was the coach. He said, "Hey, run some laps, boys."
There you go.
And it was just a good.
Kind of gets them in check right away.
Exactly, and just a great program. And like I said, for the last 3-4 years, I've been kind of following this team. This coaching staff has a knack of taking, I think, average players and then over those 2 to 3 years making them really good.
Yeah.
And I'm just very, very impressed with that, and they're just building tremendous character in these kids. And above all, you know what? Win or lose, it's great to win, but Huff has made a lot of winners out of these kids. There's no doubt about it. And it's the beauty of that is you see these kids come back.
Yeah.
For these games, these homecoming
All
games,
the alumni
and
to
all
come
these
back.
alumni come back, and they travel.
Right.
As well, I saw a lot of alumni at Winnicott.
Sure.
I've seen them at Exeter. They go and they see
Yep.
the team, and that's a special thing.
Yeah. Fans, we hope you enjoyed the season as much as we did. Thank you for tuning in to the 2017 football finale. Enjoy all the games. All the games are going to be recorded. This is GTV Sports. I'm Al Potvin, voice of the Grizzlies, joined by Scott Gross. Thank you so much for tuning in.